try and create an effect of contradiction, where there isn't anything really substantive of an actual contradiction that comes out.
There's not a lot of detail in it.
And I leave that open as an open challenge to you and any other person in Speaker's Corner. Try and find a contradiction in the Quran. Now, furthermore, you'll find that there are other kinds of miracles that the Quran has. I'll give you some of them. One of them, which I believe is one of the most powerful ones, is the linguistic miracle of the Quran. And you'll say, okay, once again, as you mentioned before, the linguistic miracle of the Quran can't be checked by someone who's a non-Arab. I say to you, really, that's not true. Say that one more time. Yeah, I'll say it one more time. I say that's not really true. I'll tell you why. The reason why is that you can substantiate this.
What's a linguistic miracle?
I'll give you some examples, since it's a dialogue. A linguistic miracle really is the Quranic, you can say the implicit claim of the Quran is that it claims that no one can create anything like it, or can make anything, or can do anything like it, right? So the way it manipulates language is a way different to the way any other human being would be able to manipulate language.
So if I learned the 7th century Arabic, however long it took, a few months or whatever, I won't be able to create a similar
He
verse.
means that it's highly poetic language.
I won't be able to make a similar verse to that.
Exactly. So now let me give you an example.
I find that incredible.
Indeed, you would do. Let me give you an example.
You know what I would say.
Yeah, I know you, man. I'll come to you. Me and you will have a conversation later. What I was going to say to you, let me give you some easy examples, right? And I like to give some easy examples for people to understand where I'm coming from. Now, if you look at the Quran, it's a book that was revealed over a span of 23 years.
Yeah.
It was a responsive revelation. So the Prophet would be asked a certain question, and then he would answer that question, almost sometimes spontaneously. So he did not have a planning time to write things down and to make things up, right? So sometimes someone would ask him, as you just started when me and you had this conversation about a certain topic, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. They ask you about drinking and alcohol and gambling. قُل, say this. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذُو الْقَرْنَيْنِ. They ask you about ذُو الْقَرْنَيْنِ. قُل, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. They ask you about the soul. قُل. So it's all like, very...
How do you know that wasn't Muhammad saying that?
Yeah.
Or his secretary,
so let me
or
finish.
his friends?
Right. Let me come to you, right?
It was written years after Muhammad dead. The Quran was written after Muhammad died.
Yes, okay, I'll come to that in a second, my friend. But what I was going to say that, if you look at, so these are the verses of the Quran, they were responsive revelations. Despite the fact that the Quran was responsive revelation, you'll find that it has an unbelievable interconnectedness, yes, from beginning to end. And I'll tell you what I mean.
But I've read the Quran. It has, it repeats itself a lot. There's no chronological order.
Yes, and the chronological ordering is not what I'm referring to here.
How
But
can
this
it be?
is a unique language.
Repeats,
Let me give you
the same story.
Let me try and give this to you in a way you'll understand. What I'm saying to you is that let's take for example chapter number 2 of the Quran. Chapter number 2 of the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, was revealed over a span of about 2.5 to 3 years. Yeah, this has 286 verses in it. This chapter. Despite the fact that this chapter has 286 verses in it, you'll find that there's an unbelievable interconnectedness. What is connected with what? I'll tell you what is connected with what. The beginning of the chapter is connected with the end of every chapter of the Quran. And the ending of that chapter is connected with the beginning of the next chapter. And the themes within the chapter are all connected to each other. And I'll give you an example.
He means a very artificial language.
In the Quran,
He means very artificial language.
But
in
the
the end of-
stories repeat themselves.
Poetic language.
Let me tell you why this is actually probabilistically impossible for someone to do, right? The end of Surah So, let me explain to you once again, right? Because this is a very important claim that we're making. We're making the claim that
I think it's an unbelievable claim.
I like the way you're using language. The claim that we're making very clearly is that the Quran is a linguistic miracle. And let me define my terms. When I say miracle, the word i'jaz in Arabic means that which incapacitates. Yes? So it has the ability or the propensity to incapacitate the person who's reading or listening to it.
Something that's impossible.
Something which is probabilistically unfathomable. Yeah, you can say impossible to do, yes. So I'll continue now. Well, I was giving you one example of the Quranic miracle. I said to you that the Quran was revealed over a span of 23 years. And that in 2.5 years, one chapter, which is chapter 2, came down. And I told you also that the Quran was a responsive revelation, such that if someone were to ask someone a question, or the Prophet Muhammad a question, he would answer in the form of revelation, which means that he had no time to write things down or to calculate what he was going to write.
But he had time to memorize, didn't he?
No, because people would ask him straight away, and he'd answer straight away. Like that example I gave you. Yes, they ask you about drinking and gambling. Say there's this, that, and the other. Yes, they ask you about the ruh, the soul. Say this, that, and there's so many examples of this in the Quran, right? So he had no time to say, okay, I'll go back home. Yeah, I'll prepare an answer, I'll come back to you. Do you understand the concept here? Despite the fact that the Quran was revealed in this way, it in fact projects an unbelievable interconnectedness, which I will explain to you right now. So if you look at every chapter of the Quran, it has the beginning of the chapter links with the end of the chapter, and the end of that chapter links with the beginning of the next chapter. And I'll give you 3 examples just to make my point clear. The end of the first chapter, Surah Al-Fatiha, asks us, it's a dua that we're making supplication, where we're saying, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. These people that God has bestowed mercy over. So, in the end of the first chapter, God is telling us that there are a certain group of people who He has put ni'am on them, who has put blessings on them, good people. The beginning of the next chapter, Surah Al-Baqarah, it says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It refers to good people again. And it says ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ, so it refers to books. In the end of the chapter, it refers to good people once again. So it says, آمَنَ الرَّسُولُ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ رَبِّهِ وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Yeah, the mu'minun are there, which are the good believers. And it refers to the books again. كُلٌّ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ كُتُبِهِ وَرُسُلِهِ. The beginning of the next chapter, what does it say? الله ألف لام ميم الله لا إله إلا هو نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق. So once again it talks about books. The end of that chapter, and by the way, the beginning of Surah Al-Imran chapter number 3 starts with supplication. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة. And it ends with supplication.
So you're saying that's beyond human capacity to do.
To be able to structure it.
Why
do I say that?
Freedom and right. The poets do the same.
The reason why
Freedom and right.
Let me tell you why I believe that this is an incredible thing, which is beyond the human capacity. Yeah? Because for me to know to structure the Quran in this way, which is all interconnected, I would have to be aware of future events, what people are going to ask me. If I'm not aware of future events, how can I structure the Quran in a way which is interconnected in this way? Because the Quran was not revealed in chronological order. Chapter 1 wasn't revealed first, then chapter 2 wasn't revealed second, third, fourth, etc. In fact, what happened is chapter 96, verses 1 to 4
Man is
revealed
very
first,
good at
and
writing
then,
books. There are millions of
chapter
books in the
73,
world.
the first chapter is 74, so it was revealed in a non-chronological order.
He's a
Yet,
scholar.
When
He
it
knows a
comes
lot.
together, it comes together in an interconnected way, which is unbelievable. Is my point.
Somebody wrote a book at the moment.
No, the editor did that.
Just like we
Someone
make
pulled it
films.
together.
Feel like a sonnet.
The editor.
The rhythm and the rhymes.
Pulled it together.
Oh, right. So the point is, how could it be edited? Because it makes sense in both ways. So when something is coming down to you,
to know whether it was true or not.
my friend, do you mind if we just have a conversation?
No, it's all right, I'm allowed to do that because I'm in free speech.
Oh, yeah, you can do what you want. What I was going to say was,
I'm allowed to do that.
I'm sorry, my
But it took too long.
So what I was going to say
as we get it
was
correct.
that, so there's two ways the Quran makes sense. Listen to me carefully. The Quran makes sense in the way it was revealed. So the fact that the Prophet had the Quran revealed to him in a certain way, it makes sense in that way. But it also makes sense chronologically. Well, it makes sense from chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's interconnected chronologically. Now my question is, how can it be that the Prophet was able to create this effect and he does not know, and he couldn't know as a human being, the future event? So that I would believe. I would say
Which future?
Yeah, which future event? You always say future events. I've heard you before.
okay. So let me make it.
You know, I'm interested. I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to find what is the future event you always go on about that he's predicting.
So what I'm saying is that when the Quran was being revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, it was being revealed in a way which was responsive. So the Prophet would be asked a question, yes, and he would answer in a certain way. So for example, in chapter number 2, he's asked like 5 or 6 or 7 different questions. I'll give you one example. They say, yes, أَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. They ask you about drinking and gambling, yeah?
Right.
And he's asked to respond to these individuals that ask him a certain question in the form of the Quran. They ask him again, yes, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ. They ask you about the moon, the new moons.
Right.
Qul, and then you're not saying the new thing is mentioned. So another question is asked. يسألونك عن القتال. All of these things, yeah, they ask about
Where's
this.
the future event?
So
You mentioned a future event that he actually predicted.
No.
I want an actual
Okay, that's-
world event that he predicted.
I like that. That's a different question.
It's a fair question.
I'll
Yeah.
put two
That's
of
what I'm always
them. What I
told.
was saying is that he couldn't have known what he was going to be asked. Therefore, he couldn't have known how he's going to respond. Do you understand that?
I mean, I could predict that we may. So people today here, just like you're standing here, with the technology you have around your neck and whatever, can probably get an idea what we might be doing in 100 years' time. Because the pace of technological revolution or whatever, and we're getting the driverless car now. We're getting the driverless car and all this thing now. Ian, we're getting the driverless car now. All right. So no, stay with that. The driverless car. We're getting all this technology. We now fly in aircraft. We now have 800 people going on a double-decker aircraft. So what I'm saying to you, if you actually look at it logically, man is progressing. Okay? So I'm sure some of us today can probably predict what might be the situation in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years time.
I like that.
So there's nothing amazing that it happened. I'm not denying that the book was well written, whatever.
No.
The fact is, I think
I
your
don't think
point
you
is it's a
understand.
man-made thing. Is that what you're saying? That's what I think. That's how I see it.
I don't think you comprehended the argument with it, right? Not to disrespect, obviously. I think you're making a fair point from your perspective. But what I'm saying is, I was making an argument that related to the linguistic miracle of the Quran. And I made the argument that anyone could understand, which was an argument that related to the structural interconnectedness of the Quran. And I said to my friend that actually what's going on with the Quran is that the Quran was not revealed in chronological order. So you know how you got chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 of the Quran? That's not the way the Quran was revealed. It was revealed chapter 96, verses 1 to 4, then chapter 73, then chapter 74. But then afterwards, the Prophet was instructed on how to put this all together into a book, Quranic form. By We Believe God, right? Now, anyways, this is part
So how was this communicated to
through
you?
the angel Gabriel.
The angel Gabriel
Yeah.
came. So the angel Gabriel was almost the messenger of God, is what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely, exactly, yeah.
So why couldn't God communicate directly to Muhammad?
Yeah, because he
Why do you have
chose
to come
he
via
chose-
a messenger?
He chose to do that through the messenger, through the angel Gabriel.
Yeah.
For many different reasons, actually, which is a different discussion. Which we want to get into.
Anyway, the main thing I wanted to know.
So that was one
why is
thing,
it
but I'll
possible
come to
that
your
you
second.
can't construct a book?
Yeah.
Why is it impossible?
Why is it not any different to a man?
Right. So what I'm saying
I know where we are.
probabilistically, because we believe in, as human beings, we're probabilistic creatures, yeah? What I'm saying is, if I flip 2 coins, yeah, obviously that's going to have a certain probability. If I flip 10, it's going to have a certain probability.
Sure.
I'm applying the same logic to the Quranic discourse. What I'm saying is that the interconnectedness of the Quran, despite the fact that it was a responsive revelation, it was revealed in different times and he couldn't have known what people were going to ask him, makes sense from a chronological ordering and the responsive ordering.
But the only reason you know this, if I may respect also to you, and I understand the only reason that you would know this is because people before you have come and told you the story.
No, I've looked at it myself.
And you were not there to know this. So what I'm trying to say to you, you can only rely on the books that are there. Okay?
Yeah.
So if there's a book which you're following religiously, if you want to say, or saying it's such a miracle and it came from God. None of us here today, in this timescale of 2016, know that this thing even exists because in our lifetime, I mean,
What's this thing?
God. I mean, there's no. We see nature, we see whatever.
yes,
So
yes.
what I'm trying to say to you,
Yes.
what I do see, what I do see physically, is human beings creating incredible films, incredible technology, amazing books, making works of art, from sculptors to literary people, whatever. So what I'm saying is, it may well be a genius text that for 1600 years, whatever it is, has gone around the world brilliantly and been brilliantly publicised. And I don't mean any disrespect by this.
you're being
We're
respectful,
both the
you're being
same.
respectful.
We're both the same here as human beings. Forget who we are. We're human beings.
Yes, he is.
Human beings follow each other like sheep. Okay. Now we do tend, it's a human thing that we will just follow the leader, follow my leader, follow my leader. So if you get a good enough leader, like we've seen in history, people will follow it. So stories propagate, they continue. So what I'm saying is, from my perspective, and I think I'm not talking about him, but he's sort of on my angle, which is why I came into this. To me, it just looks like another man-made creative tale with a great orator somewhere. People are following.
Do you mind if I answer
I will go along with that.
No, that's fine.
I've not said anything you don't, that's fine.
First of all, what you've said is it just looks like X, Y, Z. Now, it just looks like it's called an assertion. For an assertion to have any merit, it must be substantiated with what we call evidences. Now, what I'm trying to provide you as my fellow interlocutor is what I would call evidences. So we talked about the parts of the linguistic and structural book of the Quran.
Private revelation.
Do you mind if I just finish one thing that I just want to get back to one thing? You asked me a question directly, and I want to answer you this question
Yeah, sure,
directly.
I'll answer.
You asked me where in the Quran is there a direct prediction of the future? And I'm going to give you not one, not two, but 3 different examples because you seem like a very genuine person. In chapter number 30 of the take care, my
That's
friend.
it, right?
Chapter number 30 of the Quran, which is Surah Rum. The beginning of the chapter starts Alif Lam Mim Ghulibat Rum, that the Romans had been defeated. Now, if you look at history, at the time of the Prophet, 7th century Arabia, there were 2 great empires, the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire. What had happened is that the Roman Empire had been defeated. What the Quran had asserted in these verses in chapter number 30 of the Quran is that the Romans would be victorious, and it gives you actual years and times. It says from 3 to 9 years. Yes? And it says that day the Muslims will rejoice. It says that day the Muslims will rejoice. So it gives us 3 or 4 different things, and it says it will be in a nearby land. It says that there will be a victory of the Romans over the Persians, and it will be in a nearby place, and it will be 3 to 9
The
years.
Romans came a lot before this.
Historically wrong.
The Romans came along.
Historically wrong.
The Romans,
Historically
the
wrong.
Romans came along before this.
On the 6th century came the
The
Muslims.
Romans came before
The
Islam
fifth,
came,
historically
and then the
wrong.
Quran.
Yeah, but it was no. Hold on.
So it's all- yeah.
No, the Roman. Wait, hold on. Excuse me. The Roman Empire. When did it dissolve?
Well before.
When did it dissolve?
It's based back in Jesus' time, so we're talking about
When did it-
2,000 years
When
ago.
the
I'm
barbarians,
testing your history now. because
barbarians invaded.
I'm asking you a question. I'm testing your history right
You
here and right
historically
now.
wrong.
When did the Roman Empire dissolve?
I can't remember the exact date.
Somewhere in the 1800s. The Roman Empire continued on, but it was ceremonially.
Well, into modern times.
Yes.
And then
Now, if you look
the Roman Empire's now
the
Italy,
Roman
for
Empire
example, a place like that.
continued from Jesus'
I'm
time
talking about from the-
throughout the centuries and existed at the time of the Prophet Muhammad. And there was what you would call in history books. Go and look into the English Western history books. The Roman Sassanid Wars. Yeah.
So we saw the end of the Roman Empire, like we might see the end of a lot of situations now.
What I'm saying to you
That's what I'm saying.
is that historically, what I'm saying is not just concurrent from our textual understanding, from our narrative, but it's concurrent from a Western perspective. This is in Western books, right? If you go to Waterstones and you ask the librarian or whatever you call the guy that's selling the books, I want something on the Roman Sassanid Wars. They'll give you something on the Roman Sassanid Wars, and it will be at the same time with the Prophet Muhammad. The point I'm making to you is here.
But we might be able to predict the end of certain regimes now, for example.
no,
in the time
but
of
look,
the world now.
what I'm saying to
It's
you is-
because we assume things, because we might see
So the
something.
Quran made the following prediction. In chapter number 30 of the Quran, the first 5-6 verses, it made the prediction that the Roman Empire would defeat the Persian Empire 3 to 9 years at the time of that revelation. So it will be from 3 to 9 years, and it will be in a nearby land, and that the Muslims would rejoice. Now, if we have a probability theory. Oh, sorry. Oh, yes. Sorry. Very yes. Yeah. So the Roman Empire was very weak at that time, which was another important point. Now, my point is we have a probability theory, machine here. We're putting in these 4 variables. Variable number 1, the time period. Variable number 2, the geography. Variable number 3, who will be happy, who will not be happy, because it says the Muslims will rejoice. And variable number 4, if you want to accept this understanding, is who is going to beat who, right? And by the way, there's a 5th variable, because some scholars say, and this is a new thing, but some scholars say that even there's a geological variable, because it happened in a part of the earth which was very low in terms of the geology, the geological disposition of that place. Now, all of those 5 things happened exactly the way the Quran said it would happen. Now, I want to tell you something, right?
But so far, the Roman Empire has collapsed. That's where I got to.
The Roman,
But what was the other geological
I didn't say
issues that
collapse,
happened?
I said it
What
was
the other geological?
The Roman
Because in
Empire
other
was on the
Bibles,
brink
they
of
also have
collapse.
geological events.
The Roman Empire was on the brink
Passings of weight of seas.
The Roman Empire was on the brink of collapse. The Quran predicted that in 3 to 9 years, that it would come back and defeat the Persian Sassanid Empire, yes? and therefore this prophecy, you could say, or this prediction, materialized exactly the way the Quran is.
Is there any prediction now for modern times then?
Absolutely. I like the questions. He's got good questions. I like his questions. But so because you did admit, the first question you said was, have you got any predictions? So I said yes, the prediction.
You're telling me, and I'm listening what I'm
So
saying
now
to you.
you've asked the
Now I
second
want to
one.
bring it into a modern context.
I like your point.
Because this world at the moment is in a
Yes.
very interesting situation.
Yes.
You have states in the names of religions.
Yes.
Everything from a Jewish state
Yes.
to Islamic states
Yes.
to Christian states in
Yes.
certain places. You have atheist states.
Yes.
You have Stalinist states.
Yes.
So where does this all fit into the predictions that were made?
I
the world?
like your question, and I'm going to answer your question directly by saying to you that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in a hadith that was narrated in the book of Ahmad Muhammad was a hadith person. He said that after me there'll be 30 years of Khilafah Rashidiyya, which is the rightly guided caliphs. And we know for a fact from history that there was exactly 30 years of rightly guided caliphs. He predicted this. He said that there will be 30 years, and we know that the four caliphs, which are Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, if you add all of their reigns together, it's exactly 30 years. He said after that what will happen is that you will have a monarchy. Yes, we're talking here about the context of the Islamic states, or the Islamic governance.
But there has been kings within the
Yes.
Islamic state.
So as we know, after the Khilafah Rashidiyya, there was a monarchy. He said after that, there will be and the words I use are like people that are grabbing on in an authoritarian way to power or to the possessions.
Monarchy is legal?
Yes.
The monarchy
Pardon?
is legal in Islam?
No, I'm just talking about what it says in the hadith, prediction.
No, because
I'm talking about predictions.
Predictions, yeah. So after that,
He said they predicted
yes,
world events.
so,
and
as we know, there was a there are dictatorships in the Muslim world for the most part. This is a prediction, but you say this is not specific, my friend. So fine, okay, I agree with you. So the Prophet went even further. What did he say?
Otherwise, our prediction can get stuck.
I like that. He said that the Muslims will. He said the Muslims will conquer.
About the Quran.
Yes, he said the Muslims will conquer Misra, Egypt. He said the Muslims will conquer the Roman Empire. And he even went further. He said that when you conquer the Roman Empire, yes, he was telling one of the Sahaba, he said you're going to have, yes, the jewels of one of the kings then. So he went so far in his prediction. The Prophet ﷺ, he predicted so many things that, I'm just starting with the geographic and political things, and we'll go into some more sociological things. He predicted in some riwayat, as in Ibn Kathir's book, Al-Bidayah wal-Nihaya, yes, he said that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ predicted that the Muslims will go into India, Al-Hind, and he said also Sindh, which is Pakistan. He predicted that the Muslims will be in Masharik al-Ard wa Magharibiha, that they will basically expand eastward and westward. He predicted, and by the way, this is a hadith which is sahih, a prophetic saying which is sound. He predicted furthermore. So these are things which are predicted by the Prophet. Now I want you to imagine something. Someone who has a very small following of 10, 20, 30 people in his early days is making predictions that Islam will spread to these massive empires and will go into the houses of all of these people. In fact, there's a hadith that says Islam will enter the house of every person. What does that mean? I'll tell you what that means. There's even a hadith that says that there will be like a light in every house and it will be a fitna for the people, which means that it will have a trilling effect.
Let me ask you a question.
This,
I'm going
the
to cut
scholars
in now.
have
There's a
said
reason
it's
I'm
TV.
taking a lot on board there.
It's TV, so
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
ask because I can now. Thank you. I'm going to ask
That's
you a
just some of the things. There's so many.
Right, forget the religious angle for a minute. Put the human angle. You're a human, I'm a human, right? Put the angle in. So a lot of mind control goes on in humanity. We're designed by our genetic makeup to be very, very good at mind controlling each other in certain ways and arguing and debating like we are now, which is great.
I think this is more of a discussion, which I like.
Yeah, it's a discussion. The issue for me is that then a prediction or a call to war against those forces? In other words, if all these predictions of Islam will take this, Islam will take that, Islam will take it, whatever, it was if somebody is clever on a mind controlling literature, writing uncontrolled literature at the time, it's almost like a call to arms. Almost like, onward Christian soldiers, for example. I'm not going to keep going on Islam just to be fair. I've balanced it. Onward Christian soldiers fighting us to war and the whole thing. So religions have stood up, and how would you get, like, if you go back into English literature, if you go back to Henry IV, for example, which I know well from Shakespeare, and it's once more into the breach there runs once more, right? Close them all up with our English dead. Basically, it was a call to war. But what it is, you could wrap it up by saying, well, one day, we could say one day Britain will have this, and this, right? And it's almost like we want this, and this. Do you see where I'm playing? So I'm not saying it is risen, because I wouldn't be able to prove this anyway, either way, because I'm not in that time zone. But that's why I put the doubt of this whole thing. Putting the human psyche into religions, not just religions in general, or controlled, but religions. If you then move to fascism, if you move to the Mein Kampfs, if you move to...
By the way, I don't disagree with you.
So you see the issue.
By the way,
you see that why sometimes people will come with a view.
By the way,
it's not different why this is come about.
Let me tell you something, right? I like the way you put that, and I'll tell you something. I think a lot of what you're saying is actually true. Not about the call to war, because the call to war is not a call to war. How do we know it's not a call to war? Because it was khabar.
Following
right,
a call to arms or something, yeah.
And by the way, I'll tell you why it would not make sense for it to be a call to war. In addition to it having been put in a khabar form, which means it's kind of like a narration of what will happen. It's a predictive form in the Quranic, in the Arabic language. In addition to that, the state of the Muslims at that time was that they were being bombarded, yes, by all of the forces, and they couldn't even, Medina is it's in Saudi Arabia, they couldn't even hang on to that. I mean, there were times where they were not being able to hang on to that plot of land, right? And so for someone to make predictions in that context, of Muslims going here and there, would seem a little bit above that person's table.